What if the familiar story of thousands of slaves toiling for 20 years to build the Great Pyramid with copper chisels is actually the greatest archaeological lie in history? What if it conceals something far more unsettling? We are told the conventional story. Pharaoh Khufu, 2550 BC. A tomb. It's simple, clear, and convenient. This version is repeated in textbooks and movies, becoming an indisputable truth. But there's something that is usually omitted. Try asking any Egyptologist a simple question. Show me a single papyrus from Khufu's time that describes the construction. A single blueprint, one budget, one record of worker mobilization. You will wait a very long time for an answer, because none exists. The Egyptians were a civilization that meticulously recorded everything. Tax collection, grain quantities, lists of priests. They left us thousands of papyri about their lives, but not a single line about the greatest construction project in human history. Not a word. This isn't just strange, it is the first loud and resounding blow to the official narrative. But this is only the beginning. What follows is something that official science cannot explain, and therefore prefers to ignore. We are told it's a tomb. Very well, let's go inside. The 40 degrees Celsius desert heat is left behind. Inside, there is a stone-cold, still, stagnant air. A narrow, oppressive corridor descends, then ascends. The silence is so profound you can hear the blood pulsing in your ears. Millions of tons of stone hang overhead. You walk through these passages, and you wait. You wait to see what every movie about Egypt has shown you. Walls covered in hieroglyphs, frescoes depicting the pharaoh's life, traces of gold, remnants of burial goods. Something, anything that screams, a god on earth was buried here. But there is nothing. Bare, empty walls. Not a single inscription. Not a single drawing. You reach the so-called king's chamber. In the center stands an empty granite box, crudely carved, with a broken corner. Officially, it's Khufu's sarcophagus. But wait, there is no mummy. No lid. No traces of a burial. Nothing at all. A completely sterile stone box inside a sterile stone room. You might say, it was looted. Fine, let's assume that. But looters, even ancient ones, take gold and jewels. They don't scrape history off the walls. They don't remove the very essence of the burial ritual from a tomb. It was never here to begin with. This is not a tomb. It is something else. And to understand what it is, we must look not at what is missing, but at what is present. Evidence of a precision that should not have been physically possible. According to the official version, forget the slaves and ropes. Let's do the math. The pyramid is aligned with the cardinal directions with an accuracy of 3 arc minutes. Think about that for a second. Modern engineers with laser theodolites and satellite navigation consider such a result to be a benchmark of excellence. The ancient builders achieved this without even a compass. The official version claims they watched the stars. But this explanation crumbles when you realize that such precision requires optics and years of astronomical observations, recorded with a meticulousness unimaginable for that era. This is the first anomaly. This is just the beginning. It's time to grasp the scale. Inside the pyramid lie 2.3 million blocks. Each one weighs an average of 2.5 tons, but those are just the common ones. In the king's and queen's chambers, there are granite beams weighing up to 80 tons. To imagine 80 tons, think of 50 passenger cars lifted to a height of 40 meters and placed so perfectly that you can't even slip a knife blade between them. But there's something usually kept quiet because the numbers shatter conventional beliefs. According to the official version, the pyramid was built in 20 years. Let's calculate. 20 years is 7,300 days. If you divide 2.3 million blocks by this number, it means that every 5 minutes, A block weighing several tons had to be quarried, perfectly shaped, transported hundreds of kilometers, lifted to the required height, and set in place. Non-stop, around the clock, for 20 years. This is physically impossible. This isn't construction. It's the work of a modern industrial assembly line, the existence of which is out of the question for that time. Even this paradox is not the most astonishing. The most amazing thing is the marks left by their tools. They testify to technologies that simply could not have existed in 2550 BC. Forget what historians say for a moment. Try to think like an engineer. There is a specialist named Christopher Dunn. He is not an Egyptologist. He is a manufacturing professional with 30 years of experience working with the strongest alloys and high-precision machinery. He sees the pyramid not as an ancient monument, but as a finished product. And he sees what historians stubbornly ignore because it upends their worldview. Take the King's Chamber. Its walls and sarcophagus are made of granite, one of the hardest minerals on Earth. The official version claims it was worked with primitive copper chisels and stone balls. This is a nice story for tourists, but it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Modern engineers and enthusiasts have conducted numerous experiments trying to cut granite with copper. The result is always the same: failure. The copper simply wears away. It is too soft. It's like trying to saw through a steel rail with a wooden ruler. The laws of physics are against it. Now, for what Dunn discovered inside. Traces of tubular drilling, perfectly smooth, circular holes in the granite. But the most striking thing is not the holes themselves, but the spiral grooves on their inner walls. This is a clear trace of a tool. An analysis of the pitch of this spiral revealed that the drill bit penetrated the granite with a feed rate 500 times greater than what is possible with manual drilling. Let me repeat. 500 times faster than if two strong men were pressing down on a hand drill with all their weight. Such a high feed rate requires immense pressure and rotational speed. This is the work of a powerful, precise industrial machine. Imagine the sound. Not the dull thud of stone against stone, but the high-frequency, piercing scream of a machine cutting into granite, as if it were butter. And this raises another question that is rarely asked. Inside the pyramid, in these narrow passages and chambers, there is not the slightest trace of soot from torches. Not on the ceilings, not on the walls. The stone is perfectly clean. How did they see what they were doing in total darkness? Not only did they use tools that were not primitive, but they also had a source of light that produced no smoke. And here, this investigation ceases to be a simple debate about technology. It becomes a direct confrontation with the fact of a cover-up. Because the evidence exists, but so does something they tried to hide forever. 1993. Remember this year. It was then that the official version of history was not just questioned, but caught in a direct lie and concealment. The key name here is Rudolf Gantenbrink, a German robotics engineer. He is not an archaeologist or a historian, but a technical specialist. He was given a simple task: to explore the narrow shafts leading from the Queen's chamber. These shafts, measuring just 20 by 20 centimeters, had for decades been considered mere ventilation ducts. Picture the scene. A small, tracked robot named Upuout moves slowly up a completely dark, oppressive stone passage, 60 meters deep into the monolith of the Great Pyramid. On the monitor below, there is only an endless, monotonous stone tube. The camera transmits a blurry image, covered in the dust of ages. Silence. And then, a stop. The robot hits an obstacle. It is not a collapse. It is not a random stone. It is a door. A perfectly fitted limestone slab, completely blocking the shaft, with two copper elements on it resembling handles or contacts. Think about it. The first metal artifact discovered inside the pyramid, found in a completely untouched, sealed state. It is a door, locked by the builders themselves, leading to an unknown space within the greatest monument on the planet. This news instantly becomes a global sensation. The world holds its breath. Gantenbrink prepares for the next step, to look behind this door. And it is at this exact moment that an event occurs that turns a scientific investigation into a true detective thriller. The Egyptian authorities, led by the then head of the Giza Antiquities, Zahi Hawass, immediately halt the project. They don't just pause, they remove Gantenbrink from his own robot and permanently ban him from any further access to the pyramid. His contract is terminated and his work is confiscated. The official explanation? A violation of rules. Doesn't that seem strange to you? The question is no longer what lies behind that door. The question is different. Why were they so desperately afraid? Of something a small robot might see in a narrow shaft? It would be almost 10 years before they dared to look behind that door. And what they would do would be even worse than a simple ban. 2002. 9 years of silence, and then a grand spectacle. National Geographic broadcasts live to the entire world. At the center of attention, of course, is Zahi Hawass, the master of the show, the man who decides what the world sees and what it does not. The performance is flawlessly directed. A tiny hole is slowly drilled through Gantenbrink's door, under the glare of cameras. A miniature camera on a flexible cable is inserted. The tension builds. Millions of people are glued to their screens. What's in there? A hidden chamber? Burial artifacts? An answer that will rewrite history? The camera passes through the slab and comes up against another door, rough and unfinished. A dead end. The show is over. The curtain falls. Thank you, everyone. No further investigation of the second door is permitted. To this day, after 20 years of silence. And here, the main character of this drama of concealment takes center stage, Zahi Hawass. A man who became the face of Egyptian archaeology and, simultaneously, a wall against which any independent research, any question that goes beyond conventional knowledge, is shattered. His word is law. His ban is a final verdict for any scientific team that gets too close to inconvenient facts. Now, they will explain everything to you in detail. Some claim they are protecting the ancient monument from destruction. A worthy goal, certainly. Fine, let's assume that. But then why, in 2017, when physicists discovered something colossal inside the pyramid without touching it, was the reaction identical? Panic and a complete ban. They used a method capable of penetrating stone without leaving a trace, and they saw something that, by all accounts, has no place there. 2017. An international project called Scan Pyramids. It's not archaeologists with traditional tools who arrive at the Giza Plateau, but physicists, bringing with them technology bordering on science fiction, muon tomography. Think about it for a moment. Imagine something like an X-ray, but instead of rays, it uses subatomic particles, muons, which are formed in the upper atmosphere when they collide with cosmic rays. These particles race towards the Earth and penetrate everything in their path, including hundreds of meters of stone masonry. Imagine this device. It doesn't drill, it doesn't knock, it simply listens. It captures the cosmic echo passing through the monolithic structure of the pyramid. The instrument registers where the number of particles is higher and where it is lower. If more particles pass through a certain area than expected, it indicates a void. It is the perfect, completely non-destructive method. It doesn't even leave the tiniest scratch. It simply allows you to see right through. The results of this scan, published in the prestigious journal Nature, sent shockwaves through the scientific world. Directly above the Grand Gallery, in the very heart of the pyramid, the instrument detected a colossal, previously unknown cavity, a density anomaly. It was named the Scan Pyramid's Big Void. Its length is at least 30 meters. The volume of this cavity is comparable to the interior of a passenger airplane. It is a hidden room or corridor that no one had ever suspected existed. And here is where the most disturbing part begins. The reaction of the official representatives. What do you think? Were they delighted? Did they schedule new investigations? Zahi Hawass immediately declared to the press, "This is not a discovery." The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities categorically forbade drilling even a tiny, millimeter-sized hole to insert an endoscopic camera. Any further research involving intervention was blocked. Stop and think about what you just heard. They are prohibiting the study of a void discovered by a technology that doesn't even touch the stone. They are forbidding even a glance. Look closely. This is the turning point. First, they block the investigation of Gantenbrink's sealed door. Then, they block the investigation of the giant void found by physicists. The pattern is obvious. They are not protecting the pyramid, they are protecting the official narrative. And they are terrified of what is hidden inside. But why? What could be so threatening to history that it must be concealed with such desperation? The answer lies not inside the pyramid, but outside, in the traces of a cataclysmic event that could rewrite not only the history of Egypt, but of all humanity. This next part may be unsettling. We are used to picturing Egypt as a kingdom of sand and scorching sun. The Giza Plateau, the shimmering hot air over the stones, the wind burning your face, the sand grinding between your teeth. It was here, in 1990, that a geologist, Boston University professor Robert Schoch, arrived. He came not as a tourist or a historian. He did not analyze the carving style of the Sphinx or its symbolic meaning. He studied the stone, the bedrock from which this monumental figure was carved. And he saw what Egyptologists had ignored for decades, or pretended not to notice. If you are interested in such mysteries, please subscribe. Imagine standing next to the Sphinx. Notice the watermarks. Go down into the trench that surrounds it. Run your hand along its vertical walls. You will feel deep vertical grooves, like channels carved into the limestone. The official version from Egyptologists, repeated everywhere, is that this is erosion from wind and sand over 4,500 years. However, any geologist, any expert on erosion will confirm this is a lie. Wind and sand in a desert act like a sandblaster. They leave horizontal, smooth, polished marks. But such deep, vertical, jagged channels can only be left by water. A lot of water. Torrents of heavy rain flowing down the walls year after year, century after century. And here, the official version doesn't just crack, it shatters. Stop and think for a moment. Heavy rains in Giza. The fact is, the last period of such rainfall, capable of leaving such deep scars on limestone, was in the Sahara over 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, from about the 10th to the 5th millennium BC. At that time, Egypt as a civilization did not even exist yet. The numbers don't lie, geology doesn't lie, the stone doesn't lie. Schoch's conclusion, which he published and which still causes panic in academic circles, sounds like a verdict. The Sphinx, and therefore the entire Giza complex, including the foundations of the pyramids, is thousands of years older than we are told. The pharaonic Egyptians did not build it, they found it. They dug it out of the sand and simply restored it, carving the face of their pharaoh onto the ancient, weathered head. This isn't just a debate, it is the final blow. It explains everything. The absence of construction records, the empty chambers, and the technology that shouldn't have existed. It is a legacy left by someone else. But if the age is pushed back 8,000 years, deep into the prehistoric era, then who were these builders? We have one last clue, and it is not on the ground. It is in the sky. And here the final witness takes the stage, engineer Robert Bouval. Like Dunn, he looks at the Giza complex not as a historian. He sees it as a system. And he notices an anomaly that everyone had seen, but no one understood. The three Great Pyramids. They are not arranged in a straight line. The Pyramid of Khufu and the Pyramid of Khafra are aligned almost perfectly. But the third, the Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest one, is noticeably offset to the side. For builders who oriented giant structures by the stars with an accuracy of hundredths of a degree, this looks like a crude mistake, an amateurish blunder. But it is not a mistake. It is the most precise part of the entire message. Bouval did what any astronomer should have done. He opened a star chart and saw the same pattern there, overhead, the constellation of Orion. Specifically its belt. 3 bright stars that in ancient Egypt were associated with the god Osiris. 2 stars, Alnitak and Alnilam, are on a line, while the third, Mintaka, is offset in exactly the same way as the Pyramid of Menkaure. The pyramids are not just monuments. They are a map of the stars, an earthly reflection of Orion's belt. But that's not the whole picture. There is a crucial aspect that turns a simple guess into compelling confirmation. The Earth's axis slowly wobbles, a phenomenon known as precession. Because of this, the apparent position of the stars in the night sky gradually changes by 1 degree every 72 years. This means the star map we see today is different from the one in the Pharaoh's time and drastically different from the sky 10,000 years ago. Robert Bauval used computer modeling. He began to turn back time, watching as the stars moved along their ancient orbits. His goal was to find the moment of perfect correlation between the terrestrial layout of the pyramids and the celestial position of the stars. Not just a similar match, but a mathematically precise one. He checked the officially accepted date, 2500 BC. There was a correlation, but it was approximate, with inaccuracies. So Bauval continued to rewind time, 3000 BC, 5000, 8000, 10,000, and this is where it gets interesting. The perfect, flawless match, the moment when the 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau became an exact 1-to-1 mirror image of the 3 stars of Orion's belt, occurred in 10,500 BC. Think about that. The geological data regarding the Sphinx points to a date around 10,000 BC. The astronomical analysis of the pyramids points to 10,500 BC. 2 completely different scientific disciplines, 2 different research approaches, 2 independent researchers. And they arrive at the same date with a difference of only a few centuries. This is not a coincidence. It is cross-validation. Now all the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. The traces of machining impossible with copper chisels. The sealed entrances leading deep into the monolith. The giant hidden voids they are afraid to even probe. And an age that completely refutes the official chronology. This is a legacy. A legacy of a highly advanced civilization that existed at the end of the Ice Age and likely perished in the massive cataclysm that wiped it from the face of the earth, leaving behind only these silent megaliths. I understand why people don't want to believe this. I understand the panic in the academic community. To admit this is to admit that our entire history, the entire timeline of civilizations, is wrong. That before us there was a civilization comparable to ours, or even superior in some aspects. To admit that we are a species with amnesia. And this leads us to the most important and unsettling question. If behind Gantenbrink's sealed doors and in the vast void discovered by scanned pyramids, there is no pharaonic gold, nothing but stone and emptiness, then why the veil of secrecy? What are they truly afraid of discovering? Within the next 5 to 7 years, a new generation of muon scanners will be able to create a complete 3-dimensional map of the pyramid's internal chambers, with a resolution of a few centimeters. They will see absolutely everything that is hidden inside. What will this map show, and what will they once again try to dismiss as a statistical anomaly? I understand why the official version is so appealing. It's simple, elegant, and convenient. I used to believe it too, like many others. But then you start checking the numbers, studying the signs of water erosion, reading the reports of engineers, not just historians. And it becomes unsettling, because the official version crumbles. It cracks under the pressure of facts. and what follows is what the textbooks prefer to ignore. At this point, the official story of the pyramids being built by Pharaoh Khufu ends. Period. It cannot withstand a direct collision with physics, geology, and basic mathematics. The version was convenient, but here it dies. The question is no longer who built the pyramids. The question is different. What exactly did they leave inside? And why are its modern guardians so desperately afraid that we will find it?